Welcome back, Warriors. Back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2. And I'm going to kind of sit in the car for a few minutes, so I wanted to make a second video for today. And once again, thanks for all the comments, viewpoints, and subscriptions. It's all greatly appreciated, and any donations as well. Always trying to kind of get better with the production. Right now I'm kind of still on my phone, but I'm going to try to get a computer with a webcam and be able to kind of expand so you guys can see more of me, and also kind of bring in some graphics and maybe put some wording together as we go ahead and put lists together of things as we go on. So there's lots of topics to talk about as we go through, and so I plan to be doing this for a long time. So when we talk about this issue, this is a good question from one of our viewers who talked about past relationships. And so the question is there a link between people who are lovers and then they end up breaking apart and going their special ways? And I think it's a very interesting type of question, because if you look at it from just a purely individual standpoint, you would probably say the answer would be no, right? Because once you've had a relationship with somebody, you just kind of move on, and whether or not you've slept with that person or you haven't, you just kind of move on to the next one and next person, and all of a sudden people have different relationships. And almost like any kind of species, whether you're talking about any animals or insects or things like that, they just kind of move on to each other, and so now they move on to another person, and so they spend time with that person, and all of a sudden it's different. Well, the interesting thing about this is that, especially if you're having intercourse, and whether or not you've had children or not, it doesn't really that matter when it comes to this issue. The key, guys, is to realize that we're all bodies of energy. And we go back to the physics, laws of physics, and we're matter and energy. And that's what we're made of. And even though we see a picture of me here, or I see a picture of you, that's what you look like, physically on the outside, but you're still made up of matter. And you see this especially when people pass away, unfortunately. You see that all they were really was a body, and whatever that was inside the body is now gone. And I've seen cases where, it actually went up in the air and something left that body. So the question is, what is that left the body? And we don't know. My idea is that obviously it's God, it's the soul leaving you and going up to heaven. But those type of things are things that people will disagree with. And the key is, to me, is that we're still all matter. And the idea about matter is that it just cannot be destroyed. And so when we look at this, it's almost like when you look at the idea of a ice cube. When you have an ice cube, it's frozen, it's a solid, right? If all of a sudden you put heat to it, it starts to melt. It's not gone, it just melts into something else. And then eventually it will evaporate up in the air. But it's not destroyed, it just transfers. And that's when we look at this transfer of energy. This is why we talk about losing your energy. And this is why, being, fapping and porn, watching porn all the time and things like that is what destroys people, especially males, because they're letting go energy. And when you let go energy, it's got to go somewhere, right? It's leaving you. So that means there's less of you that you have at that moment. Can it be recreated? Yes, but it's not an infinite amount of source of well here. When you're younger, you think that's the case. And that's what I thought, and so I had to kind of realize as time went on that this is not an infinite well you're talking about, and your body only creates so much in a lifetime. You have to try to conserve as much as you can with this, and you will become stronger and stronger if you do that. But I'm at 60 years old now, and it took me 58 years to kind of figure that out. So the idea is that once you've had relationships with people, okay, in my mind, now this is just my opinion, I don't have a lot of scientific background to knowledge this up and to support this, but the idea is if you're having intercourse with someone, okay, if you're, whether you're having a child or not, you're giving them energy, especially if you've released while you're doing this, you've actually given them energy, right? That's something that I don't think ever leaves another person's body. It may move around, those type of things, but you never lose that. And so that's why people who have had those type of things are people who, they will remember that. Not only for the emotional attachment to it, some people give emotional attachment to those things, some people don't. But they will remember because they have the energy. And that's why I feel that the question was, why is there a strong link after people have been dating and going out, especially if they've had intercourse and they've really kind of released energy to each other? You're going to have that for your whole lifetime, in my opinion. Just my opinion. So I think when we talk about having some sort of energy and really trying to focus on releasing, realizing that release you're giving to somebody is something they're going to have for forever, right? They may not have the same amount of energy as time goes on, but they're going to have it. They're going to remember it. And I think that's what's important. And I think for the women in the audience on this one, I think that, it is very hard nowadays because so many people are just kind of being free and easy and with themselves, and you have multiple partners. Well, to me, that would kind of destroy not only all your energy but your soul, right? Because now all these connections are overlapping and things like that, and so now you have so many lovers and so many people that have been with you that it's very difficult to go ahead and kind of separate that out. And for a person to have any kind of long-term relationship, in my mind, after they've had all this, what the young people call it, body counts, right? How can you do that? How can you really have focusing on one person when all of a sudden you've had all these people, And nowadays I realize what's happening, you have certain movements that talking about people can do anything they want, And I think certainly that's the whole thing, I think you have to go ahead and realize that there's times that you need to kind of do those type of things. And there's times that you want to have a child and with that special person. But most of the time, people, if you're only doing it for short-term gratification, you're going to run into problems, especially if you do it over a period of time with multiple people. And I just think that's an anathema to our society, a curse. Because what happens then is people don't realize how free they are. They use it in the wrong way and they abuse it to the point where they're not responsible. And this applies to both men and women. And I think that's why when you look at these type of things, you're going to have people who are going to remember and have that energy that you gave them for a long, long time, and they will have your energy as well. And so the whole key, guys, is to realize that every time you have a relationship with someone, I don't care if it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, especially if you've had intercourse with that person, that's something that you're going to remember. God has given us these bodies to, not to just abuse them and kind of just use them for self-satisfaction, things like that. Those type of things will be indwelled in people's minds and for a long, long time. And that's why I think that once you start looking at multiple partners, whether you're male or female, you're going to run into major problems having any kind of solid relationships, because that's what you kind of focus on, and your whole energy and your body and those type of things is focusing on all these multiple partners you've had, and it's very hard to get out of that mode. It doesn't matter if you're married or not. If you've had that past type of history, it's very difficult to kind of focus on something new, and say, okay, I'm going to be loyal to one person when all of a sudden I've had all these relationships. And that's why I say, gang, and this applies to both males and females, I say that you're better off achieving your goals, working on the things you want to work on, and finding one person, right, that you could have a long-term relationship with, because not only going to save you a lot of energy in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of, getting away from a lot of issues that you don't have to have. You can just imagine all the issues people have, right? They're dealing with all the time. Breakups, if they're married, divorces, all kinds of stuff going on there. Some people, having families where they got 3 kids from different, mothers and fathers and things like that. It just creates a whole host of problems if you can't kind of focus on your goals, get the things done you want to do, and find the right type of person to do them with. Now, I realize saying this is against all of what was happening with our dating situation, our new situation. But remember, you have only so much energy, and you have to keep a lot of your energy to you unless you want to have a child. And that's a different situation. So as I kind of talk about this more, that's my perspective. Now, I'm also 60 years old, So I've had my kids, and so now I'm kind of working towards a different type of enlightenment. We all kind of go through those type of things. We realize, oh, this is fun. You know, we want to be liberal. We want to go ahead and do anything we want to do, and those type of things. But the idea, guys, is that you're still responsible. And if you're doing multiple partners and things like that, then realize that you're going to have consequences, whether it's diseases, whether it's loss of energy, whether it's loss of your soul, right? To so many people that people just become an object. And this is why people, do this, and they also get involved with things like, watching images and looking at, pornography and those type of things, because they focus on things that are not, they don't look at people as people. Now, one thing I'm noticing as I'm going longer and longer into the streak and now doing a lot of hard mode is that I'm now looking at people as people. And that's a big change than I used to be a long time ago. I'm not looking at someone as like an object or someone that's attractive. I'm trying to talk with them and get to know them as a person, not as that. And so that's not in my thinking anymore. And every time I think of something like that, especially in hard mode, in monk mode, I'm trying to kind of move past it and use my energy in a different way. So that's something you're going to find out as you're longer in the streaks, people. You're going to find out that it gets you away from thinking about people as objects, which is kind of where we are in this world, thinking everybody's an object, right? And then any kind of self-gratification or gratification is a good thing. And I would totally disagree with all that. And going through this now, I realize that it's the opposite. That in trying to get your mind off of all this, focusing on different things, all of a sudden now you're becoming a stronger person, and you now have the ability to kind of get things done in a different way. And so, good question from our viewer. I think certainly any kind of relationship you've had with a person, especially through sex and intercourse, you're going to have there's going to be marks on both people. There's going to be a transfer of energy, and that's something that doesn't go away. And I think that's something to realize, because as you have more and more partners, a lot of this gets really confusing. And this is why I think a lot of people start having, psychological problems, different types of things going on, depression, anxiety, because they've had so many partners that it just makes it very difficult to kind of see through the objectivity of people and see people for themselves. And you're in a different mode where certain things matter more than others, and people are not people, they're just kind of objects. Okay? All right, so good questions today, both about being angry on the other one and being linking with former lovers and things like that. The answer to this one certainly is that your lovers and people that I used to date, I still keep in contact with all the time, because it's just something that you just don't, let go of. And you can try to forget about people, but those people are still going to be connected to you in some way, even through the energy. Okay? All right, guys, great questions. We'll see you next time, and battle on.